JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon reportedly considering a role in the Harris administration. That's according to reporting from the New York Times. Dimon has told associates he supports the vice president's election campaign, but has stopped short of a public endorsement for fear of blowback from Trump. Julie Hyman and Josh Lipton asked billionaire Mark Cuban about this. Cuban is campaigning on behalf of Harris. Here's what he had to say.
I think just having the conversation with him sends the message that Kamala Harris is a hardcore capitalist, that she wants businesses of all sizes to grow. She understands that if we're going to reduce the deficit, we not only have to cut costs, we not only have to improve efficiency, but we have to know how to grow the economy. And that's something Jamie has proven that he can do with his companies and in helping others.
Joining us to discuss this more, we've got William Coen, founding partner at Puck News. And Bill, it's great to have you on. So obviously Mark Cuban sounding this idea that Wall Street's pick, including for Jamie Dimon, is the Harris campaign. But Wall Street doesn't seem to really be pricing that in right now. We keep hearing analysts and investors talking about the Trump trade on our show. What do you make of that argument that this news from Jamie Dimon about the consideration of a cabinet seat is affirming the idea of Harris as Wall Street's top pick?
Well, look, I think, first of all, who wouldn't want to be Treasury Secretary? I mean, once you've got your $1 billion tucked away, what's next but to be Treasury Secretary? And so, lots of people on Wall Street want to be Treasury Secretary. Or some other cabinet position in a presidential administration, whether Trump's or Harris's. I'm not exactly sure what this all means. He seems to be saying it's sotto voce, which means he's not coming out publicly yet in saying this. Has he been in touch with Kamala Harris about this? There are lots of other people who have been much more loyal to her over the years and who probably are in a good position to be Treasury Secretary as well. And I think the important thing is to remember here that probably 80% of the rank and file on Wall Street are Democrats, are progressives, and probably do support Kamala Harris. The people at the top, of course, tend to be more Republican and for whatever reason seem to be supporting Donald Trump. Many of them seem to be supporting Donald Trump at the moment. Jamie Dimon has sort of played it down the middle, right? Last January in Davos, he said all sorts of nice things about Donald Trump's policies in his first administration. Then there was the crazy story about him endorsing Donald Trump, which Donald Trump put on Truth Social and which was quickly batted down by the JPMorgan forces, and now this. So, maybe he's just being smart, as he said, not wanting to offend either side and letting everybody know he's available.
Bill, what do you think this is going to do just in terms of how we've seen this all being priced out in the market, right? We certainly have seen this swing over the last couple of weeks. It seems the Trump trade is back in focus. We've seen that play out with the dollar. We've seen that play out with Bitcoin and some of the excitement surrounding that. Is this something that you think could sway maybe some investors out there just in terms of the fact that Jamie Dimon thinks that a Harris presidency is a great idea? They maybe would win more of the investor community to see more, I guess, upside here for her presidency.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that would be the case. I wish that Jamie Dimon could sway undecided voters at this point to back Kamala Harris. I just don't believe there's any undecided voters anymore. I don't even know what an undecided voter would look like at this point, let alone one on Wall Street. So I don't know that anybody can sway anybody at this point. I mean, there's been a lot of really fascinating endorsements on both sides lately. You've got Bill Ackman's crazy endorsement of Donald Trump, and you've got Liz Cheney's seemingly unfathomable endorsement of Kamala Harris. I don't really see what these endorsements do at this point. I just can't even imagine anybody being undecided at this point.
I want to talk to you about the economic impact. I am reading a preview because I can't get behind your paywall, unfortunately, Bill. But I know you recently talked with Simon Johnson about Trump's potential impact on the broader economy. What do you think is the single biggest thing that voters are not taking into account just yet about the economic impact of another Trump presidency?
I mean, first of all, he talks all the time about how wonderful and glorious his first 4 year term was in the White House in terms of the economy. He added $7 trillion to the debt. Unemployment rates were up, certainly much higher than they are now. Yes, the stock market was up, but the stock market is even up more under Joe Biden than it was under Donald Trump. So he's created this fantasy of how wonderful and glorious things were under his first administration. I think Simon Johnson, like many other real economists, understand the dangers of this tariff proposals that he keeps touting, as does Mark Cuban. He's talked about tariffs being his favorite word. Well, that's just a tax on American consumers. So I'm not sure what he's thinking about and why he keeps talking about it. I don't think he'd probably ever really do it. Who knows what he's going to be capable of doing, frankly. I think a lot of people on Wall Street are voting for gridlock. They want gridlock. They're willing to have perhaps a president of one party and Congress, or at least one of the houses in Congress of another party. I was talking to a former Trump cabinet official yesterday who said the very exact same thing, that he's hoping for gridlock in Washington out of this election. And that's probably a good thing at this point, because it'll keep either side from doing too much without a consensus around what needs to happen.
Bill, let's talk about what this means ultimately for the uncertainty at JPMorgan specifically. I'm not going to ask you to comment on who exactly maybe is going to be the successor. A number of names have been floated now for several years, but just in terms of that uncertainty with a potential new leader at the top of a bank like JPMorgan, how should investors be looking at that?
Well, look, this would be the most graceful way for Jamie Dimon to exit JPMorgan Chase. He's been there 20 years. He's obviously done an extraordinary job. Truly, he has. I used to work there before he got there, and it was basically a mess. And he took it over and somehow got all the players in the crew boat rowing in the same direction. Hats off to him. He's created a bank worth $600 billion. People talk about it being the first $1 trillion financial institution, and it very well could be. But he hasn't done a good job on the succession front. A lot of potential successors have left the bank, feeling like there's no path upward to the top. His coaching tree is quite extraordinary at this point, almost as good as Coach K's. And I give him credit for that. But this would be a very good way for him to exit the bank, just like it was for Hank Paulson to leave Goldman Sachs back in the day. He needs something like this to gracefully exit. And as for who it might be, that is a real open question at this point, because I'm not sure that any of the internal candidates that have been mentioned ad nauseum are really in a position to succeed Jamie Dimon at this point.
Love the reference to Coach K. Bill, it's always great to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us here.
I had to throw that in.